time, and we're bringing something new that we're very excited about. And this is what you are calling language of leadership, right, Coach?
That's right. I'm excited about this because there is a language of leadership, and it's so important. Like, I see so many leaders that they work themselves to the bone. They're up at 4 a.m. They're working until 10 p.m. And they never really cover one of the most important pieces of their job as the leader. Today, we're going to even talk about what it means to be the leader, but making sure that everyone understands each other. Like, in a given company, right, there is a language of leadership. There are certain words that will inspire, certain words that will get results, but more than that, certain words that you had better make sure the entire team is calibrated on, right? Like, I mean, let's talk about something really simple, right? Let's talk about, like, one of the most powerful moments in my life being coached by another human being, another coach. I hope to get him on the program one day, Satima Gali. He's a Super Bowl winning guy who is an incredible coach. Satima and I were talking one time. He says, "Hey, listen, are you committed? Right? Are you committed?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm committed. I'm 100% committed." Here's the crazy thing. His next question almost took me off my chair. He says, "Well, let me ask you this. Do you know what the word commitment means?" Well, yeah, of course I do, right? And this is the problem, Rigo, for most leaders, is we assume that we have the same definition. So when Satima says, "Hey, do you know what commitment means?" Now, I think together we've actually done this lesson before, but I'm going to ask you, Rigo, do you know what commitment means?
Well, commitment is something that you prove after, right? I mean, you have to show commitment, correct?
Okay, so look, so what's your definition? Let's just show this right here. Let's let this be an absolute like object lesson right now. What's your definition of commitment, Rigo?
I would say somebody that is that keeps their promises, that's true to the commitment they're making, right? So if I'm going to support you in a program, let's say this live program, that I'm going to show up no matter what. I'm going to make sure that you have the support you need to do this every Monday.
Perfect. So look at the key elements of that. Your working definition of commitment is, I'm going to do what I said I would do. Which means, as you're looking at commitments, whether you're going to keep them or not, you're going to be very, very careful to what did I say? Right? What did I say? I didn't say I would do that, so I don't have to do that, right? Imagine if someone on your team has a different definition of commitment, and then you guys are talking like, "Hey, I'm committed. Are you committed?" "Yes, I'm committed." "You're committed?" "I'm committed." Awesome. Now, what if someone on your team's definition of commitment was to do everything that was in the SOP? Committed means I do the entire SOP, that and that alone. Now, is that a bad definition of commitment? No, sounds pretty good, right? Especially if you're an employee who has a list of SOPs, right? But watch how that puts into conflict immediately. You, an employee, let's just call her Angela, right? You and Angela are having a meeting, and you're like, "Angela, are you committed to this project?" Yes. But in her mind, committed means doing whatever's on the SOP sheet. In your mind, committed means doing whatever you said you would do. You guys now are having a conversation about a project where you're having two different conversations. You're having a conversation about doing what we said we would do. She's having a conversation about following SOPs. And now your organization is in jeopardy. Why? Because the worst kind of miscommunication is miscommunication where we don't know it's happening. Meaning sometimes my wife and I are talking, and I can tell she has no idea what I'm really trying to talk about, or vice versa. I can tell that I have no idea what she really wants me to understand, right? What's really dangerous is when we have a conversation and we both think we understand, but actually we're saying two different things. So you can see where you go, like how you thinking commitment means, hey, whatever I committed to, and your employee thinking or your coworker thinking, okay, being committed means SOPs. Now, this is what Satima punched me with in the face, because I'm like, "Yeah, are you committed?" "Yes, I'm fully committed." "Well, do you even know what commitment means?" "Well, yeah, I think so." "Well, what's your definition of commitment?" "Doing whatever it takes." Okay, well, that's pretty good, but let's get on the same page. Now, again, this was my coach to me, and it's been one of the most, it was the first conversation I ever had with them, one of the most powerful concepts anyone's ever taught me. He said, "Well, let me tell you what it is to me so we can be on the same page." And to him, and now this is what commitment is to me, is doing what's required. So if I'm committed to running an Ironman, or I'm committed to making $1 million, or whatever the thing is, doing what's required. Number one. Number two, doing whatever I said I would do on top of that. Okay, do you accept this definition, he says. Man, that's fucking awesome. Yes, I love this definition. Okay, so anytime that you and I talk about commitment, you're going to know I'm talking about two things. Number one, what's required, and number two, anything you said you'd do on top of that. Now, this starts to shape like what when you accept this definition of commitment, which is whatever's required plus whatever I said I would do, it really starts to shape you as a person. But notice, Rigo, how important it is for me and someone I'm working with. Let's say we have a team of 10 people. So I have a team of 10 people. We're like, hey, we're going to get this new windmill built, right? Are you guys committed to that? Yeah, we're committed. Am I committed to that? Yeah, but then we have 10 different definitions of commitment. Are we really on the same page? No, we just all seem to be. And where our definitions are just a little bit misaligned, this is where problems start to happen. Because I think commitment means what's required, which means sometimes we might have to work until 2 a.m., plus what we said we would do, which means we better say no a lot or we're going to end up doing a lot of extra work for free. But if my employee says, well, that means committed means doing whatever the SOP in my job description says, which is, it's nothing wrong with that definition. But man, we're thinking about two very different things. Can you see that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you're defining what's required. So when we have a defined process for an employee or anybody involved in the team to take, by all means, that is a good tool that's going to help keep them in line, but it's not going to align them with the total mission if your thoughts of where it needs to be, what's going to be required to get there, and like you said, number two, anything else that we've said we're going to do as a team, as an individual, then when we get to the end, your perception of my commitment and my perception of my commitment will not be aligned. And here's what we're missing.
I see this in companies all the time, right? Like I travel around, do trainings in companies all the time. I see this imagine if you and your team don't have the same definition of a result. Like imagine if you and your team don't actually agree on what the result is that this happens all the time. I'll sit guys down in a circle on a team. We blindfold them, right? Like, so we blindfold them just to remove all distraction and say, hey, what's the purpose of this company? And then what's the biggest problem in this company? Or what's the biggest success of this company? It is amazing to see the variety of things that will come out of the mouths. If we have 20 guys there and we say, what's the purpose of this company? Quite often we get 10 or 15 responses, which as a leader, we've got to see, whoa, if 20 of our employees, if 20 people on our team can't say what we're doing, at least pretty damn close, whereas like there should be one answer, right? If you have 1,000 employees, I would hope that those 1,000 employees could say all together, here's what we do. We exist for, right? But this is so rare, and this is why the language of leadership is so important. And it's going to sound like, well, hey, man, but this isn't hard skills. No, but this is shaping your company, because the way that human beings learn is through language. We learn through stories. Even if you're going to teach me to weld a piece of equipment, you're going to teach me to weld that piece of equipment. Yes, hands-on, but also with stories that come out of your mouth. And inside of your organization, if you can't have the same story internally, you have no chance of having the same story out to the market and out to your customers, which is so damn important. We spend so much energy as a business in marketing and sales in going out and telling the story. But if we don't have that internally, if internally we're not on the same page, then we're just creating more and more problems by having more and more customers interact with us. Even the word leader itself, Rigo, is a word worth defining, right? Leader, when you really break it down to its etymology and where this word came from, right, means the pathfinder, the person who can find the path, the person who finds, like, imagine back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers, how important it was to be able to find game, to be able to find food to eat. So the leaders were generally the people who could find the path, the person who finds the path to that food, whether that be, whether that be killing something or whether it be the path to growing our food. Very important. What is my job as a leader? Is to find the path. My job is to find and show and make sure that we're all on the same page about the path. In order to do that, language is a hugely important piece. We talk about SOP SOPs, we talk about processes. Those are all important. But remember, every single business boils down to human beings. Like the people who are doing the work are people. People learn and express in stories and in words. And having a set vocabulary at a job, having a set vocabulary of like, hey, when we say this is what we all mean. Everybody got that. Yeah, we're all on the same team. That unifies us and it lets us amplify our effort. Right? I don't know. You ever work any kind of construction job in your life?
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, absolutely.
So something as simple as we have something really heavy to lift. It takes two people to lift it, right? It's like, all right, we got to get this part from the ground up to this workbench, right? You're on one side, I'm on the other. And then we're going to go, right? Let's go. 1, 2. Now, what's going through your mind right now as we're about to lift this, 150-pound thing together, and I get to 2? What's the instant thought you're starting to have, Rigo?
Well, I'm starting to get ready for 3, right?
Or for me, if you're me, it's like, wait, do we go on 3 or do we go on go? Is it going to be 1, 2, 3?
That's exactly right. Well, funny enough, as I probably would just start to pick up, assuming you and I are aligned with on 3 or after 3, right? Is it on 3 or is it 3 then lift, right?
Right. If you're gonna play rock, paper, scissors, right? Is it 1, 2, 3 and on 3 I make it, or is it 1, 2, 3 shoot, right? And it depends on who you play with.
Right. That's right.
And if you're ever playing rock, paper, scissors, what's the first thing you do whenever? Because you want to win, you don't want to cheat.
Oh yeah, you define that rule right away because you do not want the other guy to get that little edge to see your paper or rock or scissors.
Right, and so you calibrate like, hey, we're gonna go on this, right? I don't know if you've ever been at a work job where you are lifting something and somebody has the wrong cue.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody feels it.
Yeah, and you got 3 guys lifting something that takes 4 people. One guy's not lifting because he was waiting for go. Oh, I thought it was 1, 2, 3, go. Right. This is happening though, even though in terms of this conversation, I'm talking about lifting something heavy. This is happening all over your conversation, all over your business. Right? Think about this simple. It's like you have a sales team, right? And you're saying, hey, did you follow up with the clients? And most of them say, yeah, oh yeah. But what does it mean to follow up? When you say follow up, what does follow up mean for your organization? Let's be clear. You're not going to have the same, you're not going to have the same definition of what that means across all industries and all companies. But man, inside your sales team, do you all really understand that follow up means I tried to call, I sent a text, I sent an email saying I missed them, and that's follow up? Or does follow up just mean I thought about the client and I sent a quick text and they didn't follow up? I don't know. This is why the language of leadership is so important. As leaders, we've got to refine our language. We got to say what we mean. We have to ensure that our audience, which would be the people who are either leading with us or following us, understand what we're saying and that we're all on the same page, so then we can go do things together. And I just think most of the time we're very lazy about this, not because we're bad, not because people are terrible, but because we just assume. Inside of my head, when I think about follow-up, I have a certain list of things. So I just assume everybody else has this. And this is where we become these frustrated entrepreneurs, right? I know you've seen this, Rigo, like these frustrated entrepreneurs. Well, I told the team this and they're not even doing anything. It's like you give the team instructions and they run the total opposite direction. And you're like, whoa, where are you going? And they're like, well, you just told us to do X. Well, what happened? The language of the leadership, if your leadership failed on language. You said X, they have a different definition of X, and now the team is in chaos. Unfortunately, it's usually not so simple as they run the wrong direction immediately where you can say, where are you going? Usually they're 2 months into the effort, and then you realize, oh, when I said this, I meant that. Yep. But when I said this, you thought this other thing.
Yep. No, totally. We see that all the time. I mean, I've seen that in our own organization, like everybody. And we're always looking at the number one attributing factor to anything not happening the way we want it to is communication. Always is. Communication is always that negative attributing factor to teams and organizations not reaching the goals. One of the practices that we have seen is even just in our clients defining within their leadership group what they see as success and what they see as the most difficult obstacles in the way. And Coach, one of the crazy things to find is how rarely they're all aligned with the obstacles and the outcomes and the path to get there. They're all aligned in needing help or searching for a solution or wanting maybe the final outcome, but they all have a different definition of what that looks like and how to get there. And it's not confusing to us, of course, looking on the outside in, but I see why this is so important, because they just need that aspect aligned. And if they're all speaking the same language, imagine how confused their team is when the leaders themselves aren't even aligned in the same language.
Well, right. And then even just like really subtle differences, right? I know this sounds like minutia was huge. The difference between accountable and accountability, right? Accountability is something you can own, and being accountable, something that you are. We don't want teams that have accountability. We want teams that are accountable. And there's a different way of getting there, and a different way of talking about that. So the purpose of this podcast, the purpose of this is we're going to bring powerful leaders on, and we're going to talk about the language of leadership. What are the things they think as a leader was the most important language that they've established? Each guy, each day will have at least one word that they want to bring to say, hey, this word I think is the key to fantastic leadership. And we have got to start owning that. Even if you run a company that just puts out widgets, right? Like, let's just say you build a little piece of metal that falls out and gets put into some big machine. Great. You have people at the controls of those machines. You have people all along the way, people selling it, people delivering it, people following up, people doing customer service, and people run on language. So we have got to refine the language of leadership. We need to understand what that means, not because we're wrong, but because everybody being on the same page is what actually makes the thing go forward. Like, that's what actually, if our company is a sailboat, right? The sail is all the results and the work that we do. But language is what connects the sail to the mast and to the boat. And so if our language is off, it's like a loose connection on a sail. So it's going to be flapping and not really catching the wind. If you want to really catch the wind, you want to hammer that down, get that really well connected, which happens through language. Again, which is why my former coach, Satim Magali, was so astute in saying, hey, I'm only going to take you if you're committed. But not only am I going to just take your word that you're committed, I'm going to go the extra step and say, hey, commitment to me means what's required plus what you said you would do. So if yep.
Go ahead, Coach. No, go ahead. I like this.
So if I'm saying I'm committed, right? Like something that people commit to all the time and fall short. Like if they're saying I'm committed to losing weight, okay. So then now we can have a different. Well, if you are committed, did you do what's required? If the answer is no, then you're not committed. Did you do what you said you would do? If the answer is no, then you're not committed. Now we have a simple standard to compare ourselves to versus what used to be, right? Which is this, well, are you committed? Yeah, I feel committed, so I'm committed. No, come on, man. If your organization is running on whether or not somebody feels committed, and a lot of them are, and you shouldn't be embarrassed. I'm telling you, a lot of CEOs, entrepreneurs, and employees who are watching this are going to realize how much they've been assuming. Like even the word follow-up, right? What does follow-up really mean? At ABC Sales Company, follow-up means that we've called, we've texted, and we've emailed. Or at XYZ Sales Company, follow-up means that we sent them an alert through their app of ours that they have. Great, but those are very different things. And if we don't know what they are, how are we going to produce consistent, predictable results? And remember, your customers want consistent and predictable results. McDonald's did not create the best hamburger, but they made the most predictable hamburger, and that's why they exploded. It's the same damn burger every time. It's consistent and result of that burger in the mouth of whoever buys it, right? At your company, you want to produce consistent and predictable results to your customers. And the only way you're going to do that is if you have the language of your organization aligned around doing that. Even a word like consistent. What does consistency mean to us? Okay, let's define it.
It's about defining the language, right? Because we did a poll a little while back, and I asked leaders what was the most important thing to them, whether it was a culture, whether it was the language. We asked a few other questions, and I'll bring those back up by next week so we can review it. But it was interesting how many leaders did not see language as one of the most critical aspects within leadership. But what you're telling me here and what I'm listening to is even in an aspect like a work culture, how a company creates the environment for their employees, how they set goals. None of this can be done without defining first every word that they're going to use within their goals for their team members, within defining what is success, within is defining, like you said, what is required and what did you say you would be willing to do. To me, this takes all the emotion out of what you find successful, whether somebody is failing or doing well. This removes this emotional aspect and it says, we've defined what is required and we defined what you said you would do. So how can you say you're committed, going back to that word, if you failed to do what was required and you failed to do what you said you would do?
Right. And what you're going to find is that every organization has a different set of words that they really either need to work on or get clear on. If you're a sales organization, something like follow-up is going to be massive, right? If you're a manufacturing organization, it may not be as big. It may be the, hey, commitment, or what is quality? We produce quality goods. Good. What does that mean? Let's get on the same page. Each company, depending on its own culture and what it does, is going to have different things. But that's the thing. We have all these guys trying to create culture right now inside of their companies, which is a great thing. I hope that's a noble thing to chase after, this culture. But man, culture starts on everybody communicate, everyone even knowing what the hell we're doing and being on the same page. So it's not about like, it's almost like creating a like, think about how many companies have core values, right? Like so many companies have core values, and then companies have anywhere from 4 to 15 or 16 core values. How many companies take the time to define what that is, ensure that all of their employees, all of their internal workers, whether they be contractors or employees, actually know what they are and what they mean?
Not one that we've experienced, right? Donnie, I'm looking at Donnie. I'm not kidding.
If I went to your average guy, if I just picked 3 random people from your company and said, what are your core values at the company you work at? What are your core values? What's the percent chance they could tell me, first off? And then what's the percent chance that they could define them? And then what's the percent chance that all 3 of them would define them the same way? And when you start going down that track and you see that, man, almost 0%, that's a problem. The cool thing about it, though, is that that's a problem that's very simple to fix. So unlike having a technological problem where you got to buy, $200,000 piece of equipment to retool, like it's actually really simple. It's just taking a minute to get everyone on the same page. Here are our core values. Here is what they mean, and here's how we all talk about them. So when you're in an issue, in your job, wherever you are, run it through the core values that we all agree what they mean. Then start asking questions, right? Because if I'm on a job and it's like, shit, I got to get this done. It's going to cost a little extra. What do we do? Well, what are our core values? Boom. Okay, now I know what our core values are. I know what they mean. That will more than likely tell them what to do. If not, cool, then I go ask. But now I go ask really in the same line with my whole team. Right?
So this is going to be good, Coach. This is going to be really good. I'm looking forward to it. And one of the things I'm going to put out there for you guys, if you're in a leadership role today and you want to get into this discussion, you want to talk about how the language matters to you, the language in leadership, that aspect, let us know. Put something in the chat and reach out to us, DM us, and we'll get a hold of you. And our producers will get stuff set up. But we want to have you on this program. This is going to be something we're really excited about. I know Coach Kevin has been extremely excited about, and we're going to be doing this every Monday, right, Coach? 11 o'clock Central Time.
Every time. Let me tell you a quick story as we sign off here. How language matters, right? I was a missionary. A long time ago, I was a missionary for my church, and I had a guy, Boki Bozilar. He wanted to get baptized in the church. Really cool dude, right? He wants to get baptized. In order to get baptized, one of the things he has to commit to is to live the law of chastity. Right now, I thought the law of chastity pretty easy to understand, right? So we had talked, and he's like, "Hey, cool, law of chastity, no problem, right?" So while we're teaching them, before he gets baptized, he ends up getting engaged, right? As he gets engaged, we get to his baptism, and there's this little interview before the baptism. In the interview, like the leader of the church says, "Hey, will you do this? Will you live the law of chastity?" Comes up, and Boki looks at the guy and says, "No way." So they come out and they're like, hey, he wants to get baptized, but he says he won't live the law of chastity. You know, he can't do this. People are there. We're about to. So I asked him, I was like, hey, what's going on, man? Like, we talked about this. Like, he's like, no, I'm engaged. You're crazy. I am not living the law of chastity. Like, I'm about to get married. I'm going to have sex with my wife. I said, hold on. What do you think the law of chastity is? He goes, no, that's that vow people take where they say they're never going to have sex for God, right? I'm like, no, cool. So that's not it. The law of chastity means you're only going to have sex with your wife. What you're talking about is about celibacy, totally different. No one wants you to take a vow of celibacy, but only have sex with your wife. You good with that? Man, of course. That's why I'm marrying her. That's what I'm. But look.
Okay, then we're good. Law of chastity in play.
Yeah, one little word, big difference. Now, he had integrity to say, no, I'm not doing it. He didn't just lie. A lot of times, though, your employees will pretend like they understand something. They'll pretend like they have the same feeling you have about it. And if you never go back and make sure, then that ends up biting you in the ass later.
Agreed.
Especially if you make a promise to a customer and one of your employees shows up and you make a promise based on certain language, but your employee shows up with a total different set of what that language means. And so the customer's expecting, oh, they're going to do whatever it takes. But then your employee thinks do whatever it takes means something different than you and the customer do. You have a big problem because you're going to create an unhappy customer even though you're servicing them. And so language is so important. It's absolutely important for us to get calibrated on and to use as leaders to effectively guide our organizations to happy customers and to profitable bottom lines.
I love it. I agree. And it's something that we are constantly working in this organization. And I'm looking forward to bringing these lessons learned as well, the challenges that we have faced, and more importantly, the open conversation and discussion. So as we get into this, Coach, in the upcoming weeks, we want to let you guys know this is an open discussion. We're going to have some guests on, which is going to be great. We're going to be talking about that, about those a specific word. And we're going to focus on that because there's going to be plenty we can talk about when it comes to leadership and how we lead our teams on those words. And we're also going to want you guys to engage into the chats, ask questions, create that Q&A, because this is to help you with an outcome of you becoming stronger in your role as a leader and having a better organization. So, Coach Kevin, I'm excited for this to get started. This was our pre-run. We will be here again next week. This will be Coach Kevin leading this. I'm excited to support it. Our organization's 100% behind it. And we're excited to see the changes that simple things like just defining what outcome means to each other in the same group, in the same organization, how that will impact you so positively. So, all right, Coach Kevin, I'm pumped about this, and we'll see everybody next week.
So am I. We'll see you guys next week. Excited.
All right, guys. For sure. And let us know too, right? If you have any questions, just let us know. Reach out to us.
If you have a word, like you may have a word of like, hey, this word, I'm telling you, when you think about your organization, like what are the top 3 problems of your organization? Is it efficiency? Is it commitment? Like if you think about it, you're going to come up with 3 words. Here are the top 3 problems I want to solve. And they're going to be words because you're a human being and that's how we communicate. When you're solving that problem, what is the value of everyone in your organization understanding what the hell the word means in the first place? Very, 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 very high. And those are the kind of issues we're going to talk about here so you can bring them back to lead better, lead more effectively, and lead in a way that people can follow. Because so often as leaders, we're frustrated our people don't follow, but they never had a chance. They never had a chance because they never understood what we said in the first place. We never took the time to make sure they did. Can't wait to take this journey with you guys. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys. Talk to you later.